Welcome into the Business on Purpose podcast. Scott Beebe, your host, the head coach, the founder of the Business on Purpose platform, where we are locked in, laser focused in the cockpit, trying to liberate you from the chaos of working in your business. Got a gold mine of an email from a client of ours, a heroic client who is constantly making heroic and courageous decisions. 5 questions will outlay actually the next 5 episodes of the podcast. So I wanted to get to the first one here, mybusinessonpurpose.com/vision. If you need clarity, if you feel like you're rattling around, constantly putting out fires, mybusinessonpurpose.com/vision. We've got a great treat for you. It's our entire vision module with the template. Totally free of charge. All you have to add is your own sweat equity implementation. So here's the question from the client that we got. How do you ensure that all tasks that you've outlaid to an employee are completed? What are the necessary steps? How do you ensure that all the tasks that you've outlaid to a team member are actually completed? And what are the steps that go involved in that? So there's a couple of things that if you've been a listener at all or a client of what we've done, mybusinessonpurpose.com, you've heard us talk a lot about the weekly team meeting. This is usually where you roll your eyes and go, I hate team meetings. And how we respond is, you're right. But what you don't realize is that you don't hate team meetings, you hate bad team meetings. But if you actually experienced a good team meeting, you would quite enjoy it because you realize that there's great progress in excellent team meetings. There's a second big tactic that we employ that helps to not supplement the weekly team meeting. You still have to do that too, but it helps to complement the weekly team meeting. And it's called the 5-part coaching framework. So I'm going to walk you through the team meeting first, and then I'm going to walk you through the 5-part coaching framework. So first, weekly team meeting. There are 5 things every weekly team meeting must have. Number 1 is an agenda. Start with your mission values. Do a quick story for 30 seconds of one time this week where you impacted on your mission and values. Give us a story. Number 2, within the agenda is big wins. BIG stands for Begin in Gratitude. We start every team meeting with big wins. Every meeting I'm in, we start with big wins, and it goes a long way. Number 3, you get to your accountability items from last week. Ding, 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 this should ring a bell. This is a moment that you're going to follow up with team members to say, hey, what we laid out last week, the task that we laid out last week, have you done it? This is the first point where you follow up with a team member on the task that you've laid out. Step by step after the accountability, that's when you get into the business items. For those of you who've been coached with us, you know that we followed the 12-week plan. Brian Moran's book, 12-Week Year, is the book. We've developed a template, a module off of that called the 12-Week Plan. And if you follow that, that serves as your business item discussion. Then you go into accountability from that business item, so you can write that down so that you can follow up next week. So there's continuity every week to make sure that the task that you laid out to a team member gets done. And then you wrap up every team meeting with 5 to 10 minutes of training. And you might say, well, what in the world do we train on? Actually, you go back to a job role and you go to a process within that job role. And if the process has already been written, train on that process. Remind everybody of the process. If it's not been written, then take time during the training time to actually draft out the process. That's the first thing you need in a team meeting, by the way, is the agenda. The second is you need to identify who the leader of the meeting is, and it doesn't always have to be you. In fact, we're starting to do this ourselves. Just this past week, actually it was this morning, I passed off leadership of our team meeting to one of our other team members this morning, and he did a great job. The third thing is you need a defined participant. If you've got a big company, not everybody needs to be in the team meeting. After that, you need to understand the budget of a meeting. If you want to know this, just Google Meeting Cost Calculator HBR, Harvard Business Review. If you've listened to this podcast before, you know we talk about that a lot. But it helps you understand the cost of your meeting. And then number 5, make sure you create that atmosphere of predictability. Atmosphere of predictability. Go to a previous podcast. I've talked about team meetings more in depth. You can see it there. Those are the 5 things you need for every team meeting. Now, so I told you team meetings were number 1. The second item that I would like to suggest to you to help hold team members accountable is what we call the 5-part coaching framework that is really well complemented with a daily huddle. This daily huddle shouldn't be any more than 3 to 5 minutes. You with one of your direct reports, whoever the team member is that you want to hold accountable to the task. And you can ask him these 5 questions. Number 1, what's the biggest thing on your plate today? And it's not a test question. You'd really like to know what's the biggest thing on your plate today. Number 2, how can I help you take any barriers away from you getting that accomplished? Number 3, here's what I see. Not here's what I feel, not here's what upset me, here's what made me mad. Here's what I see. It's very objective and unemotional. Here's what I see. Number 4 is, does that make sense to you? Check in. So now you've asked, what's the biggest thing on your plate? What can I do to help you get that done? Here's what I see. Does that make sense to you? And the final question you can ask, or actually statement you can make in the 5-part coaching framework is, here's what I need you to do. And so you get your time out to ask them what you need them to do, but you've also checked in with them. So if you do a daily huddle, 3 to 5 minutes with the team member, I know it's a lot of time, it seems like in your mind, but it's worth it. It pays off. Consistency and communication will pay off, especially in light of a vision. Use the 5-part coaching framework. Tell them, I'm going to ask you these 5 questions every day for 3 to 5 minutes. And then you've got one day, set time of that day, and every week to run your team meeting. If you've got those 2 things in place, you will hold every one of your team members accountable. And you know what? They'll appreciate it. Thanks for joining us. Check us out, mybusinessonpurpose.com/vision. If you need clarity and you feel like you're a small business owner in chaos, we would love to help you out with that. It's totally free. mybusinessonpurpose.com/vision. Thanks for joining me on the podcast. I'll see you next time on the Business on Purpose podcast.